Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 22nd edition of Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here once again. It's Tuesday morning. Actually, it's Thursday morning, April 18th, 2018. So we're broadcasting from central Minnesota, most notably Elk River, Minnesota. We still got a decent amount of snow out there. There are some bare spots, though, that the hens have been picking up on and chewing up the weed seeds and eating up grass, creeping Charlie, all that good stuff. And you know, that's what they prefer. They don't really want to eat corn and industrial soybean lubricants. They just want to eat good, fresh, healthy food that comes out of the ground, and preferably, you know, worms or protein or high fat content. But I mean, basically anything that's green is free game for them. You know, they'll scratch up the ground, uproot some seeds or some egg cells, or you know, maybe some insects that are growing some eggs, and they'll eat them. So yeah, that's what they like to do. It's what they do best. So ladies and gentlemen, well, you know, we're contemplating whether to run, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days a week, but I think for the most part we'll probably stick with 4 days or well, we have been doing 3 days a week, so we'll probably do 4 days intermingle 3 and 4 days a week, see how that goes, and yeah, ultimately, you know, we'll find out with time whether that's a good decision or a horrible decision. And then of course, you know, we'll start to incorporate instructional videos and maybe film in new locations or switch things up a little bit. That's one of the advantages of having a video talk show. I mean, yeah, you know, if you wanted to run a talk show, you could just get a microphone, talk into the microphone, and then stick it on wherever, YouTube or AM, FM radio, and it'd be pretty low memory or bandwidth too, because the talking audio doesn't really require a lot of memory. So I mean, there is that. You know, it's good to have. Yeah, obviously the first couple months having video of the show really isn't all that necessary, and it hasn't been. We haven't yet utilized it to its full potential, is basically what I'm trying to say here. And part of the reason why we do video is just because if we were to just do talking on the microphone, number one, it'd be harder for me to take the role seriously. And number two, I mean, there is something weird about, you know, when you listen to a talk show for years and you hear somebody talk and then you see them, you're thinking, well, you know, that person doesn't look anything like I expected them to. So, I mean, people put more trust in others when they can put a face to them. And especially when it comes to, you know, if you can't even hear their voice either, then it's definitely a true story there. Which is going to parlay into our topic of today. I mainly wanted to discuss mostly just the origin of just communications in general. You know, for example, obviously humans, when they first started talking to each other, you know, they used whatever language or pointed at stuff or used pictures or hieroglyphics like in those old Egyptian tombs. And then, you know, people started using written language, or, you know, actual words to write, not pictures, words to write out languages. And there are some countries or regions of the world, even today, where they don't really have written language yet. So, I mean, yeah, you could say maybe they're behind the time. But, you know, they probably just don't like wasting resources and cutting down trees to make paper and to write stuff. So, I mean, who's to say whether it's right or wrong or good or bad or left or right? Just how it is. So, so we started out, you know, talking, then writing, and then we got to the point where electronics started to really pick up steam. And there's a gentleman by the name of Nikola Tesla. He's basically, you know, Alexander Graham Bell probably gets credited for the telephone, or for someone else gets credited for fax machines, but yeah, I mean, once the telephone really hit its stride, you know, initially the telephone would just communicate on 2 copper wires, and nowadays, you know, we got, well, the telephone, yeah, it's still on copper wires, but for for all of our other communications, there's fiber optics or the coaxial cable. So you can transmit things. Fiber optics is nice because you can transmit LED light through it, and it travels at the speed of light, so it's pretty fast. It can go around the world in a nanosecond or whatever the case is. So, yeah, I mean, if you see, when back in the days, they would have these news stations on, and they would have people that were on via satellite, and then there'd always be a delay because they had to talk, and then it had to go up to the satellite. The satellite had to, multiplex the message or filter out the carrier wave and then send it back down. And it took a lot of time because, you had to go all the way up into the atmosphere where the satellites are orbiting around the Earth, and then you had to come back down too. And there's a lot of satellite feed loss too. But when it came to fiber optic cables, they found out that they could just dump a whole bunch of cables in the ocean, and between Europe and US or Asia and America and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I mean, as far as internet goes, most international transmission is done through the fiber optics. And someday too, computers will probably be fiber optic powered too, because right now there's just a series of circuit boards. Like this laptop here is probably got 1 7-layer circuit board inside, and then it's got the hard drive with the memory and all that junk too, and then of course it's got the monitor and all your USB inputs, and then a output for hooking up to the TV. So yeah, I mean, if it was just fiber optic, shooting lights back and forth, because right now it's shooting electricity on the circuit boards. So that's why it heats up. That creates friction. There's energy losses there, that there's latency and speed that's less than, fiber optics are just transmitting light, so it's super duper fast. And yeah, it doesn't lose a lot of heat either, because, light doesn't, the sunlight makes a lot of heat, but I mean, it's just highly energetic, it's got a whole bunch of waves. The only reason why the sun, well, I shouldn't say, not really the only reason, but the sun emits so many waves that every wave we can see in the whatever 400 to 700 nanometer wavelength is part of the sun spectrum. But the sun also has all these other waves too. UV rays, the ones that are supposedly dangerous, and then infrared and all that junk too. So Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. You get in the UV range, the sun transmits waves way beyond that, and then you get into the R, the infrared, sun transmits waves way under that. So yeah, it's a lot of waves. And that's the thing with LED lights. They're specifically designed to, I mean, it's not a narrow wavelength like a laser, but they're designed to transmit only a small range of wavelengths, whereas your typical incandescent bulb, that transmits a whole spectrum of waves that a lot of them aren't even on the visible spectrum. That's why it creates so much heat, because it's just making a whole bunch of random energy particles that are emitting off of it. Whereas fiber optics, it's just transmitting a very small, very narrow bandwidth. And then, you got, fiber optic is literally just a glass cylinder, and then the light just bounces back and forth, and then it transfers along the whole line. And yeah, there are some losses to it, but there's also repeaters or amplifiers. So there might be an amplifier every 50 miles or something in the ocean, or wherever they put them. So yeah, all modern day internet is usually, through, international long range transmission is through fiber optic. I mean, if you're going to talk to somebody in England or Europe or Jamaica, it's probably through fiber optic cable. Alright, so that being said, ladies, so we had, the telephone was invented late 1800s, used pretty much all the way up till 2000, the landlines, and once cell phones really started picking up, the first prototype cell phone was probably the 1970s. It was just some big brick that, maybe had a lead acid battery and probably only lasted about 30 minutes and took about 30 hours to charge. But cell phones really, because you had your landline phones, and they're pretty nice, they're very handy to have. I mean, when I was growing up, yeah, I mean, we used landline phones all the time. It was one of those, there's one where you had to spin the numbers, so you had 6, 5, 3. And, it took a while to call people, and it still had the cord on it too, so you couldn't stray far from the phone. So it was very nice to when we finally got, the cordless phone too, where you could. We found out that the range was about a mile or so because we live pretty close to the high school. So we thought it'd be cool to be able to bring the phone to the high school and then call people, but it turned out that the phone didn't quite reach that full range. So yeah, it'd have been nice. I mean, back in, early 90s, we would have had a cell phone at high school because our wireless phone managed to work that far. Maybe we had a better amplifier too. Yeah, it might have worked. So I mean, it would have been pretty cool. It would have been like Saved by the Bell when Zach Morris had his cell phone. We would have had one before that too, just based on convenience and proximity, living very close to where we would have been able to use it. So when internet first came, it was probably the mid '90s. That's when it really started picking up a lot of steam. And that's when you had those websites with the 26 pixel colors and just real basic primary red, orange, yellow, blue, indigo, violet colors. So the websites, they didn't have a lot of lighting, excitement or anything. It was just very simple, black background, yellow text. That was about it. So, but yeah, I mean, that was the advent of the internet days. When you made a website through GeoCities or AngelFire, that's pretty much what you got. But then we started to get these things called Instant Messenger. Now the first time, so I guess literally the first time I ever had a keyboard and could type to something was Guild of Thieves back on I think it was probably the Commodore 128. But it was a game where it's basically your typical adventure game. You'd walk around and say you're going to do stuff, but you had to type it in. They didn't really give you any options, so it's like, what do you do next? So you type in walk to a canoe or walk on water. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever because it gave you the freedom to say whatever you want. No longer were you confined to just the options provided to you. Because when you play the original Nintendo, say Shadowgate for example, you can only click things and say walk here, walk there, use this item, use that item. So you certainly couldn't type anything because the Nintendo did not have a keyboard with it, which obviously would pose a difficult endeavor there. But Guild of Thieves, there are other characters in the game that you could talk to them too. But of course, they're only programmed to reply to a couple different words. So first time I played the game, I was a pretty young guy. I might have been single-digit age, and yeah, when you're talking to characters, I was asking them all kinds of questions, like, yeah, man, what kind of car do you got? I mean, you got an airplane or a helicopter or anything? I mean, obviously the answer was, I do not understand, or I'm unknown at this point. So it was a little disappointing because there wasn't a lot of reciprocity. I thought, when I first tackled it, I thought it was going to be a pretty dynamic conversation, but it wasn't programmed to reply to a whole lot of messages. So I mean, that was my first foray into instant messaging. I was still optimistic about it, even though the initial results were rather dismal. But fast forward a few years later, so I would hang out at this one guy's place. I'd hang out in his basement. He probably lived about 3 miles from me, so he'd bike out there. He kind of lived out in the country, and he was playing this computer game called Diablo, and that was probably maybe late 90s, 97 or so when it first came out. And yeah, you're just playing the game, walking around, knifing people, shooting them up and whatnot. And then there's text showing up on the screen, on the bottom of the screen. Big Joe Rosso 58 is like, where are you and stuff. So I was kind of asking him, I was like, well, what's that? Why is, is the computer talking to you? He's like, oh no, this is some so-and-so sitting in Ohio or whatever. Yeah, I saw that. It just completely blew me away. I'm like, wait a minute. You can actually transmit text on a computer screen to living, breathing, conscious entities at pretty much anywhere. And at that point, it's probably just the USA. But eventually, it would just be anywhere in the world. And he's like, yeah, totally. It's awesome. It's nice. We can tell him to meet us in the cave or something like that. And I first saw that, I mean, it was just like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. We gotta talk to this guy, man. Let's see what he's up to. Let's see what he does. What maybe he's a funny guy or whatever the case is. So yeah, I was pretty much hooked on Diablo for a couple months. Just the human to human interaction. I mean, it's convenient too, because I mean, if you call somebody up on a telephone or a cell phone, you pretty much have to drop what you're doing and talk to them. And if you engage someone or accost somebody on the street, yeah, you pretty much, that's not to say that it's not to avoid doing those things. But it's just with the instant messaging on Diablo, I could fire up the game, sit down there, and then, just have a few conversations, just a few casual conversations with people. You can really think out what you're saying, put a lot of time and complexity into your statements. And, you had a nice record to refer back to, so if so-and-so says something, you forget what they said, you can just go back and read it. Well, I mean, when you talk to somebody on the street, if they tell you what their name is, and it's like, Yamaguchi, and then later on you forget what their name is, and then you got to ask them, and you feel like an idiot and a moron for not remembering their name. Whereas when you talk to them when I talk to him on Diablo, it's just, all right, yeah, I can go back, and yeah, he said his name was Yamaguchi, so, he seems like a pretty cool guy. It was nice to have that record, and like for me, it's not, I don't really consider it multitasking, but it's nice to have multiple things going on at once. For example, you can I could fire up Diablo and then just start eating a bowl of cereal and talking to these guys at the same time, and then going around and knifing, the Mad Butcher or some random dragons here and there. So, you're getting a lot of your, probably the whole brain was lit up by all the excitement and exhilaration that was playing that game, Diablo. So it was just it was a real eye-opening. It was probably a turning point in my existence too. And I'm very thankful for my friend that showed me that. I mean, he was just a really smart guy. I mean, he was probably the top 5 or whatever student and all that, and he pretty much knew exactly what he was going to do in life. He did the whole school thing, probably got straight A's, did the whole PhD, and now I'm sure he's like a professor, probably like a chair of a department somewhere. And he's only 30-something years old, so he knew exactly what he was going to do in life. He's a very intelligent guy. He was pretty much up to speed on all the latest modern cutting-edge technology. So, I mean, it's good. It's good to have him as a friend, that's for sure. Not to say I was using him for anything. I mean, it just, a mutual friendship. He must have saw some positive characteristic in me that he wanted to hang out with me. I mean, I don't really know what it was exactly, but yeah, that's why it's important just to be yourself, true to your character, true to your country, because the people that you will want to be around will maybe not necessarily gravitate towards you, but it's just, if you try to mold yourself or to create a false persona of yourself to get in the favors of somebody, it usually, I mean, short term it might work, but for long term it's usually doomed for failure. I mean, that's not to say you're completely hard-headed and intractable and just a recalcitrant and a very weird person all the time, but it is important to evolve your character to better suit just evolving world and different people you're going to be around and all that stuff too. But yeah, I mean, it was just really cool hanging out with this guy. It's like I'd bike out there and just hang out in his basement. I mean, one day we went there, playing the original Nintendo, playing Diablo on the computer. Maybe the TV was on. It was just a cavalcade of entertainment. And I get there at 1 o'clock, and next thing you know, boom, it's 6 o'clock, and then it's starting to get dark out. Well, probably wasn't getting. Maybe it was later, like 7 or 8 o'clock, and it's starting to get dark out, and I had to bike on a country road home, so probably should have left. And Yeah, it was literally, I mean, his basement was literally like a time warp. I mean, that was probably about the only place that I went to that I have vivid memories of just, yeah, where'd the time go? You know, I'd go there and 5 minutes later, it's already 5 hours later. So, I mean, it's just so much fun. You know, he's a really intelligent guy. You could talk to him about anything. And, you know, he wasn't like one of those weird, smart, autistic guys that just read books all the time and was weird, socially awkward and didn't really want to interact with other people. He was he got straight A's. He's a cool guy. You know, he even ran track and stuff, and he's a funny guy. You know, he did a lot of things socially. You know, he's probably played Lego Adventures with us and trapped gophers and all that too. So I mean, it's good to have people like that in your life. Just good people, you know. And they're not too hard to find. I mean, you gotta look for them. They're out there for sure. But I mean, just people that yeah, I guess they do kind of bring out the best in you. I mean, that's not to say that I became a straight A student or anything. I mean, quite the contrary. But just people that, you know, that you can see the good in them, they can see the good in you, so you kind of build it with each other. And yeah, that's how I first got introduced to instant messaging, which is something I still use even today. And I think it's one of the most valuable tools that any human can have to just get into the spiritual collective psyche of everybody else. I mean, you know, I could literally walk about 10 steps to the left and talk to anybody on the face of the planet and talk about anything. And I mean, that's to live in this era where you can do that is completely and totally amazing. But unfortunately, like a lot of things in life, when I first engaged in instant messaging, I may have slightly overindulged. And the next segment, we'll get into a bit more detail with that, ladies and gentlemen. But before we do, I wanted to talk about a future show we're going to have called Good Times Balls Deep. And, you know, last Friday the 13th, I was going to drive down there and we were going to plug some stuff together and see what happens. And then, you know, the brakes went out. So yesterday when I was checking out the car, I noticed the valve cover was leaking oil too. And it was leaking some into the spark plug opening. So I had to, you know, go to MajesticHonda.com and order spark plugs, valve cover, gasket, and then I needed to order some little part for the drum brake that I forgot to order on the first run. So yeah, it's probably this weekend I won't be able to meet with the host of Good Times Balls Deep, but hopefully next weekend, you know, we will be able to get something together and see what happens there. And he's looking for some sponsorship too. He mentioned he cited some places in St. Cloud that would potentially sponsor and bring funding to Good Times Balls Deep, which would allow him to, you know, get whatever he needs or wants to get to make the show great again and make St. Cloud great again and ultimately America great again. So we're definitely moving forward on that too. And, you know, he's a busy guy too. He doesn't have all the time in the world like me to just film random shows here and there. And that's why text messages is basically just promo for Good Times Balls Deep, because I have the time, he has the talent. So, you know, that's what friends do. That they combine their strengths and put them together to create something great again. And you know, that's what I'm trying to do, and you know, the producers of text messages are trying to do. And yeah, I think if we all just work together, everyone achieves more. And you, ladies and gentlemen at home, will feel the power of that too, and you'll be absolutely the beneficiaries of it. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Text Messages. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here on this Thursday morning, April 18, 2018. We're running probably 4 days a week. We'll be running our text messages program, and then hopefully in the near future we'll start to have Good Times, Balls Deep, maybe some other shows too. We might run a morning and evening show, but one of the problems with that is the guy for the evening show, he's kind of hard to get along with, and he's just a pretty aggressive person and just not a very friendly guy. It's hard to work with, and producers don't really want him around. But the fact is, he will come after bad people and corporations, and that we may need that at some point. So I don't really want to call him or send him an instant message or anything, until we know for sure. So we might take the show in some different directions, or add another show, or whatever the case is. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking in this show about mostly communications. We started off with spoken language, then written language, then we had wired telephones and on copper lines, then we got fiber optics, and then we got cell phones in the early 90s, and then we got computer, and then internet, and then you got instant messaging, and email too. Email is always a pretty handy thing. It keeps a good record, and you can write out. I get some people complain about textual communications because when you can't see somebody, you don't know what the context of what they're saying is. What I found though, I've never had a problem with it because I always just assume good out of people. I always give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't just automatically assume someone's an asshole because they want to talk to me. I've noticed a lot of people make that assumption about when I try to talk to people too, which is unfortunate, but I guess it's some weird primal instinctive Neanderthalish type way that people still think in the 21st century, which if you want to live in the past, go ahead, knock yourself out and everything too, but it's just at some point you just have to realize not everybody is a criminal or a bad person or a mass murderer or anything like that. It does happen, but for the most part, you just got to be a little smart about things too. And the less of an asshole you are, the less of an asshole somebody else is going to be to you. So that's always that hasn't you would. So basically, it's just I've tried to utilize that tactic, and it doesn't always work out. And sometimes it's the format of communication. Because see, what always baffled me is, you can use that train of thought, not be a dick, you not be a dick too. So if I go out to Menards or Goodwill or Cub Foods or something, and then just talk to people, interact with them there, it's customers, other people working. Generally, people are always friendly and nice and considerate, and they're willing to talk to you and everything. But if you go on Facebook and you talk to someone, they're like, "Oh, this is weird. Why are you talking to me? Oh man, oh you crazy bastard." It's just, it's like, I guess I see the difference. When you get people inside their little hamster cages or their little cars or their, like when people are driving around in their cars, they get angry, they get aggressive, they do bad things, and when people are inside their house, they're in their comfort zone, so they think they can be mean, bad people. But, I learned this from raising hamsters. When a hamster's in its cage, and if you put your hand in there, it'll attack you, it'll bite you, it'll try to tear your arm off. When you get it out of the cage, it's very timid, it's curious, it's a very friendly critter. It's very innocuous. And that's the same with people, too. When people go out in public, they put on their public face. So then, when you see them in Menards, they'll act nice to you. But, if they see an instant message from you and they're in their car, they'll get mad and angry and try to run you off the road. So it's just, at one point you think like, okay, well, if you know that, then why would you continue to try to instant message people or whatever? But the fact is, for every 9 dicks you'll meet and interact with, there's one cool, totally rad, awesome person that makes up for all the 9 idiots, basically. So, you have to play, not really play the odds, but the risk reward type equation there. Because I mean, these people don't know why they're being an idiot to you. They just are. You know, they're Neanderthal, primal instincts, whatever the case is. So going back, probably early 2000s, you know, more so early 2000s, there's this thing called AOL Instant Messenger. Now, initially it was only available to people that actually had AOL. Yeah, I mean, this one guy was showing it to me, and he had a couple different names on everything too. But he's like, yeah, you know, I can talk to people from high school or people from work or something. It's like, well, that's pretty awesome. You know, you can talk to them while you're, you know, playing Nintendo or something. I mean, that's totally cool. So once Instant Messenger became available to just download for anybody, yeah, I got on that right away. You know, I tried to get as many people as I could. Just as you were limited to about 100 screen names. So yeah, I tried to fill that thing up instantly and then just interact with any random people. I mean, it didn't matter who the hell they were, where they came from, what their background was. For me, it was just nonstop nonsense, tomfoolery, and skullduggery, and I just wanted to talk to and interact with as many people as I can. I mean, I can remember if the bottom of the window, you know, if it had about 10 boxes and they're all flashing, it was a fun night for me. You know, everything, it was just, you know, the brain was running 100 miles per hour, just interacting, talking to all these living conscious entities, and just having a good time for the most part. And, you know, yeah, it probably was a bit detrimental to school performance and all that garbage too. Because, I mean, for example, you know, the typical schedule back then was, you know, you go to school, or you swim practice or track or whatever, and then come home, lumber around for a couple hours, eat some food, and then 10 o'clock, fire up Instant Messenger and sit on that till 2 in the morning, and then get 5 hours sleep and go to school the next day. That was basically high school in a nutshell for me, as far as, you know, the spring, fall, and winter. You know, summertime, you know, you'd want to spend a lot of time outside, you know, hang out by the creek or by the river or, you know, the playgrounds or headquarters and bike around, drive around, just enjoy the great outdoors. And then, yeah, at night, and you could fire up Instant Messenger or whatever and sit on that till 4 in the morning. So pretty much what I did. I don't really regret any of it because it was just all good times, you know, interacting with other people. Even today, you know, on Facebook, you know, I try to interact with as many people as I can. I mean, obviously it's not quite as, you know, heavy as it was back in the good old days of AOL Instant Messenger, because, you know, when I first got Instant Messenger, you know, most of it was people from, you know, your local school, whatever, your work or something. You know, you talk to them for a while, then they kind of move on to other things. So then you start to pick up names, you know, you start to expand your horizons, pick up names of more people, you know, maybe from like St. Cloud or Minneapolis or whatever, and then you know, to expand out, then next thing you know, there's people from Oregon or India and all this other junk showing up, and it's just a great time. You know, I mean, it didn't matter what the hell people did with their lives, it's just, if they're cool people that wanted to engage in nonstop nonsense, tomfoolery, and skullduggery, or if they're just good, kind, genuine, awesome, considerate people, it's just fun. You know, I mean, there's nothing really, as far as career aspirations or family, this, that, and the other, yeah, there is nothing, I guess, productive about it in that sense, but I mean, it didn't really seem like a guilty pleasure or a forbidden pleasure. It's just, you know, you're exercising your brain to try to talk to these people and have as much fun as you can. See, that's one of the problems that we have today. If you talk to somebody or they talk to you, they just assume that you want something out of them or they want something out of you. And it's like, as far as, you know, monetary gains or you want them to do something. But that absolutely wasn't. I mean, the only thing I was getting out of other people was entertainment. And hopefully I was providing them the same entertainment that they would provide me. And, you know, like I said before, you know, for 80 bad people that you would meet, there's 5 or 20 totally rad, cool people. And, you know, there's some, like, really super awesome people that were way cooler than me, and it was just that I could try to you know, mimic their behaviorisms and patterns and statements and incorporate them into my real life, so I could say, all right, if I act, you know, not like totally rip them off and copy them, but if I can sort of act like these people and pick up how they, you know, react to statements and everything too, it's like, you know, maybe I could be a better, more friendly person that's more accepted in society and all that stuff too. So it was definitely an educational experience for me. And it's just something I love doing too. Like for example, back in probably the early 2000s, we'd go to this friend's house. He had a pretty big house, so we'd all kind of sit around a TV and computers and all that stuff too. And they all wanted to play like Halo or watch DVDs and stupid crap like that. And I had absolutely zero interest in playing shoot 'em up games or GoldenEye or any of that kind of crap. So they'd all be doing that, and I'd just be off sitting in the corner, just instant messaging people all night. And yeah, I mean that was just what I preferred doing. It was what I loved doing. It's maybe not what I did best, but it's nothing but good times. I mean, I don't really remember bad memories from it. Yeah, when I first started off, I was probably a little unrefined and more agitating than I should have been. But over time, you like I said, when you meet the cool people, the people that know how to interact in society and are just genuinely good people, you can kind of mold your behavior patterns after them too, and then use your individuality and then incorporate the good that you see in them, and then just create a better character out of yourself. It's like Lieutenant Commander Data. He's played by Brent Spiner, and you're thinking like, well, Brent Spiner always acts like a big goofball outside of in real life because he wants to try to compensate for what Lieutenant Commander Data was. But the thing is, everybody loved Commander Data. So even though you're technically just the actor of that character, it's like if everybody loves him, why wouldn't you incorporate that character into your real life? I mean, that doesn't mean you put white mayonnaise all over your face and then yellow contacts and just act like Commander Data. But you can at least pick up some of the mannerisms and some of the respect and way you communicate with other people if that's what people love. I mean, it's just, different people require different ways you're going to act towards them too. I mean, if I'm going to talk to some 60-year-old lady at Menards or talk to some 15-year-old kid at the guitar store, I mean, I'm not going to act the same way. Obviously not, So yeah, I mean, Lieutenant Commander Data, he can, if he sees some 30-year-old guy that looks like he watches Star Trek, then yeah, just go full-on Data with him. I mean, I don't really see why sometimes you need to insist on being somebody that a lot of people are going to hate or get agitated by. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up to another break here, and in the near future, we're going to have good times, balls deep. I'm having more car issues, and I got to pick up. I probably could just fire the thing up and drive down there and all that too. Looks like pretty much most of the snow has melted off the driveway. Hopefully next Friday, April 27th, will be the season opener of the Princeton Speedway. It looks like the temperature is probably going to be low 60s. So, the important thing is, for you ladies and gentlemen at home, if you're going to go to a racetrack, bring very warm clothes, because during the day, yeah, it's warm, the cars are making a bunch of noise and creating a bunch of heat and stuff. But at nighttime, especially if you're on aluminum bleachers, it will get very cold. And, there are some nights where I didn't really dress appropriately, and then, just shivering uncontrollably. But you can't leave. You got to stay till the bitter end. If you didn't dress properly, hey, that's your problem. It's your fault. You got to do the uncontrollable shivering and jittering and hopefully get to the end without getting hypothermia. So, yeah, it's good to be prepared. Safety equipment too, eye protection, ear protection, mouth protection if the wind is blowing in your direction, and if it's almost always going to be a dusty track. It's not a tar track or any of that junk. So next Friday, April 27th, Princeton Speedway season opener, and then you got Granite City Speedway in St. Cloud, and then KRA Speedway in Wilmer, Viking Speedway in Alec, Arlington Raceway in Arlington, North Central in Brainerd, Cedar Lake Speedway in New Richmond, Wisconsin, Red Cedar in Menominee, Wisconsin, Amsoil Speedway in Superior. You got Hebring Raceway, the Proctor Speedway. Then you got races down south, Austin, Minnesota's got a racetrack there. And then, of course, you got the Madison, Minnesota. They got a racetrack there. That's a quarter mile. They run late models, though, which is pretty awesome. And then you got Fiesta City Speedway in Montevideo. Fergus Falls got the I-94 speed. So there's a lot of options for dirt track racing fanatics, ladies and gentlemen. And that being said, good times, balls deep will definitely be happening sometime in the near future. But I'm the parasite of text messages, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. Thanks for listening. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're on episode 22 of Text Messages, and yeah, we've been mostly just talking about instant messaging and communication and how you talk to people and things of that nature. So, it's not really an educational topic, it's more of a historical topic. See, when instant messaging was first developed, it was by a few physicists who, I don't know if they're working for DARPA or whatever. It probably was DARPA because most, like GPS and all that other stuff where it involves worldwide interconnectedness, it is mostly, military, which is mostly DARPA. So yeah, that's probably where it originated. Just scout physicists, they wanted, one was maybe in Switzerland, one was maybe in Brazil or Minnesota, and they just wanted to interact with each other in a convenient method. So, so instant messaging was derived from highly intelligent people that communicate with each other. So that's what I always saw myself as, a highly intelligent person that wanted to communicate with other intelligent people that happen to be within a geographical proximity or, maybe on the other side of the world. And, too, it's just, it is kind of weird because from the time I was born to now, we had telephones when we were born, but, I've probably seen every communication renaissance, like, we had walkie-talkies, ham radios, and that kind of BS, but, to go through corded, because, corded phones were probably around for almost 100 years. And then once you got to the 80s, then things really started to pick up a lot of steam because when semiconductors went from the transistor vacuum tubes to integrated circuit on the circuit boards, you could make a lot of very technologically advanced stuff with that. Because in the 60s, Jack Kilby or whatever, designed the first semiconductor on a he designed the first microchip on a circuit board. So with that, everybody's just able to make technology, scale it down so it's so much smaller and faster and all that too. So, the late 80s, when you got wireless phones and then cell phones and then internet. So and then cell phones nowadays, they got all the data transfer. A lot of people don't even have computers, desktop or laptops anymore. It's just they use everything on their phone. Like me personally, I stick with the old school, and I'll use a desktop computer, but that's just if I started to instant message or Facebook on my phone, I'd probably get addicted to it just like everybody else. So it's important to pull back on the reins and keep everything in balance there too. So getting back to that again. So we went through we started with corded phones, and then we got cordless phones, and then you got cell phones. And back then cell phones you could call people, and that was about it. And then you started to get text messaging where you could send somebody text and they could send it back whenever they wanted to. So that was a pretty cool thing. And now it's just internet, talk, text, phone, and all that. So yeah, you can do anything you want with your cell phone. And it started, like I said, the first prototype cell phone was probably mid-70s. And now, a cell phone can do it all. It's a handheld computer that also doubles as a communication device. And as far as internet, when the internet first came out, you had to use dial-ups. You had to do the whole dial. Like War Games, that old movie with, I forget what the name of the actor was. But it was like an early 80s movies where he dials into the computer's or the school's computer and then changes his grade. Maybe it was Ferris Bueller, but yeah, it probably was Ferris Bueller actually. I think it was his friend that dialed in and then changed his grade on something. So, and then the principal was looking at the computer screen while the grade was changing. So yeah, that was original dial-up. And then you got cable, and now most of it is most people. It is probably a good idea to get cable because wireless Wi-Fi. We don't really know what the safety ramifications are of it yet. So in my house here, I just keep everything wired. I think it does transmit in wireless, but probably should disable that or unplug the antenna or whatever the case is. So yeah, it doesn't have an antenna on it, but it's still, I'm sure the internal antenna is pretty strong. But yeah, it is a good idea just to keep your, to be wired instead. Then you don't have to put weird waves through your head and all that. And outdoor antennas are better too. And yeah, if you want to put some weird copper in your walls, I guess you can do that. And it's called the skin effect. It absorbs all micro wavelength signals, from cell phones and all that too. But then yeah, and it'll be difficult to use your cell phone inside if you did that. So it's probably not something that you really want to do. But if you got a room that you can designate as a health room or just a room where you cut down on all the radiation, then yeah, just stick some copper in the wall or whatever. Like the tinfoil hat. That's tinfoil is aluminum, so yeah, that's basically what they said it's doing. It's just absorbing wavelengths that hit the tinfoil. And they have to be certain wavelengths too. If somebody is really trying to control your brain, they can probably figure out some way to shoot thoughts into your mind, penetrating a tinfoil or the thickness of your skull too. So yeah, there is that to consider as well. Being healthy is very important, no doubt about that. But getting back to the instant messaging. So yeah, I remember when you first talk to people, you'd say like, oh man, we should meet up at the creek or meet up at the bakery or whatever. But you definitely want to call them just to confirm. I can remember one time, the first time we met somewhere, we were making a big deal about it because we only conferred with each other on instant messaging. Then we met there, without any other ulterior communication. So it was a monumental occasion. Nowadays you won't even think twice about instant messaging somebody and meeting them there, corresponding with them just based on that. Yeah, it's kind of a good idea to call them and confirm and all that too. But it's just not. And kids nowadays, teenagers and everything too, they're mostly probably shooting and sending texts back and forth constantly or reading up on their Facebook or I don't even know what the other sites are nowadays. When MySpace was around, yeah, I used that for about a year or two and then that fizzled and then then Facebook picked up a lot of steam, so I hopped on that bandwagon. But yeah, I mean, Facebook instant messaging is a little bit different than AOL because it's hard to know who's there, who's not there, and everything too. So, but it is nice to be able to transmit videos and post on walls and all that other goofy stuff. So you can transfer media amongst other people too, and the data transfer has picked up a lot in the last years because when back in like early 2000, if you fired up Napster, it'd take you an hour to download a 5-minute song. And then once cable came, once that was with dial-up, but once cable came, then you could pretty much fire up a song and it would take you 5 minutes to download it, and the song takes 5 minutes, so you can listen to the whole thing while you're downloading it. So it's super cool, and even today it's kind of that way too, so it's very handy. Even HD video. Like the insanely expensive camera for this show, we film about an hour, and then it probably takes about 2 hours to upload it on YouTube. Yeah, maybe we can do some compression on it and all that junk too. But I mean, the quality is pretty good. The quality of this insanely expensive camera is probably, yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't look professional from maybe even 1990s standards, but it's just, the stuff that was professional back in the analog days are just what you could buy in a digital format today at Walmart. I mean, Twitch, whatever. That's probably mostly $50 webcams that people just buy at Walmart or Target. So I mean, when I bought a microphone for this show, which as you can see I'm not using, and I should just give it to the host of Good Times, Paul Steve. He could probably use it, but I got it from a gentleman who does Twitch live streaming, and he just has a $50 webcam that he got at Walmart. So I mean, that works for the show. The quality is decent. It doesn't require a lot of bandwidth or memory or information transfer. Because that's probably one of the downsides to having an insanely expensive camera is to do live streaming, you probably need to have something of, well, I don't know. I mean, you need higher internet speed or whatever, or lower bandwidth, or compress it down, and stuff that I don't really know what I'm talking about at this point, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I mean, if you just had some cheap camera, like all those webcam whores, and then, it doesn't require a lot of bandwidth, so yeah, you can live stream with it. Someday we might go to live streaming, but I don't really know yet. It's just we're just running pedal to the metal, balls to the wall, and seeing where it takes us. Hopefully we can get to episode 100, and then episode 1,000, and 10,000, and at some point though, I kind of had to figure out, all right, if I have 90 years of existence left, and on average if we do 200 shows a year, so that'd only be about 1,800 shows. So yeah, so I probably wouldn't be able to get to 2,000 shows. Well, actually, no, I think that'd be 18,000 shows. But, so yeah, I suppose if I could get to 15,000 shows, that would probably be a lifetime achievement goal. So yeah, I mean, I should just sit down someday and try to come up with 15,000 different topics. Then I know that, I'll be able to run the show in perpetuity, or whatever the case may be. But until then, we'll just take it day by day and just try to work within our. So I mean, we might get new producers too, and might change the format of the show and start coming after bad corporations. So things like that are always in flux. I mean, today's topic, it wasn't really health related or education. It was just, I guess it was just a history of, yeah, I suppose, it kind of was educational as far as communication history. And the interesting thing is where it's going to go. I mean, are we going to have holograms and video chat with holograms, or just be able to transmit our thoughts to everybody? So, in one hand, it's a little frightening, but on the other hand, it's pretty exciting too. I mean, if you could just sit down at your computer and transmit your thoughts to everybody instantly, I mean, like those old Star Trek creatures that communicate telepathically. They just send a whole deluge of information to people, and then they interpret it and send it back. I mean, it's just very efficient. I mean, if it works, yeah, it'd be totally cool. I mean, anything that's more efficient, yeah, I mean, change is hard. It takes time to transition to things like that too. I mean, the whole format of this talk show would be different too if it was just instantly sending your thoughts out to everybody. Just be turn on the camera, send the thoughts out, turn off their camera. So instead of watching an hour of a program, you just tune in for 5 minutes and then boom, you're done. Or 5 seconds and it's done. But yeah, it's hard to tell what's going to happen in our future. It's exciting, no doubt about that. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to keep up with a lot of these scientific articles and health articles and things like that too, because generally we have a lot more content than showtime to fill. And it's we really should do 4 days a week and maybe throw in a couple night shows here and there just to get more of the content, detail oriented junk out there for you, the ladies and gentlemen at home. So sorry, a bit of an on-air production meeting here, but I mean, it is important to try to keep up to speed with technological advancements and how you can get maybe not ahead of the curve, but just be ready for it. And yeah, I mean, everybody has to make adjustments in their life. I mean, who would have thought in 1980 that you could sit on your computer till 2 in the morning and send text back and forth to people? I mean, maybe at the time it would have seemed weird, because you're thinking like, well, we're used to hanging out at our friend's house and playing board games, and now all of a sudden we're just going to be able to sit at home and send text back and forth. So when we're thinking now that we just sit at home and send text back and forth, if we think in the future we'll all of a sudden just be able to transmit thoughts instantly, that may seem intimidating. But to the guys that were playing board games in the 80s, sending text back and forth to dozens of people at one time probably seemed intimidating. But then when they actually did it, they found out that it was totally cool and awesome and rad, and that it was just a good time and balls deep and all that. So yeah, I mean, I think as long as artificial intelligence doesn't take us over and make us all a bunch of idiot losers, and so yeah, I mean, it's always important to keep things in a balance too. Like me personally, I don't really carry a cell phone with inside stores or look at Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. Actually, I think I've logged into Twitter once in my whole life. But yeah, it's just a good idea to keep things in a balance and to not get carried away with things too. Because I mean, I probably got carried away with instant messaging at times in my life, but hey, I mean, at the time it seemed like it was a good time. But also if you drink a lot of alcohol, it's like, yeah, you have a lot of good times doing it, but then it does have kind of a long-term and even some short-term effects on your brain and performance and productivity and all that too. So it's just with all pleasures, you keep them all, rein them back a little bit. Just don't get carried away with them. It's basically the whole gist of it. I mean, if you enjoy eating sugar, which is something I would absolutely advocate against, just try to limit it to very little, or hopefully eradicate it at some point. Create a long-term strategy to eradicate sugar usage. I got addicted to cereal, and it took me a while to kick that addiction. I probably ate cereal for 30 years, and now a couple of years ago, I finally got rid of it for good. I tried eating cereal a few months ago, and it was just disgusting. I mean, felt like I had the acid reflux and everything, and felt like I was going to vomit everywhere, and it wasn't good. Oatmeal is still pretty good though, but you got to heat it up. When you heat it up, it's a little easier to digest. It just got good stuff in it: monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, a little bit of fiber, carbohydrates, and probably some protein too. So I'm sure it's got some. If it's grown organically on good, clean, rich soil, it's probably got some good minerals and nutrients in it as well. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up to the conclusion of the program today. I'm glad to have you here once again. Hopefully you're enjoying the program. It looks like our ratings are pretty much in the toilet now, but that's okay. We're just going to keep running balls to the wall. So it takes a while to develop things. I mean, we might be in the embryonic stage for a year or two before we can finally really start to pick up some steam. And part of that is, it's probably mostly my fault. I mean, if I was a better speaker, more intelligent, or could formulate sentences better, and if I could educate you better, entertain you better, that obviously the show would be better, and you'd want to listen to it. So we are going to have a future show called Good Times, Balls Deep. I think you guys are really going to enjoy that and appreciate the efforts that go forth into that show. And we don't have a set date for it yet, but it's definitely approaching quickly. The host of Good Times Balls Deep, he procured a laptop, and now he's out trying to get sponsors too, to get additional funding for the show, for his show, for that show. I don't know if I could call it our show, but it's Good Times Balls Deep. He'll be the brainchild behind it. I don't know what kind of producers we're gonna have, but there are gonna be guests on the show as well. So there's just a lot of intelligent, scholarly, erudite individuals that are gonna be involved with it, and it's gonna make St. Cloud great again. So I'm really excited to get to watch that, and I probably will adopt some of his mannerisms and behaviors to use on this show here. If they're good and well and just and right and all that too. And yeah, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the future. Yeah, the sun's out today. Sun's out, guns out, gym, tan, library. So we're definitely on. We're probably still hitting 4 cylinders on this show, but I'm pretty optimistic about the future. I think if we start running 4 nights a week, maybe if we maybe we can do a day and a night show, and just trying to get more content out there, and hopefully the more content we provide, then the more potentiality of entertainment for you, the ladies and gentlemen at home. So ultimately that's what matters most, and probably to maybe film on new sites, or just to incorporate different elements into the show, like instructional videos, just trying to do all that, and that that requires a lot of creative thought. And in all honesty, up to this point I've done a pretty half-assed job. I'm not gonna lie. I've just been trying to establish the base, the foundation of an hour-long talk show, and just trying to be semi-competent at it, not a complete fool. So yeah, once we start getting the instructional videos, and hopefully maybe some other entertainment videos. But one of the problems that I faced a couple weeks ago is when you include other people on the videos, then you have to get their permission, all that stuff too. So it's kind of, there's obstacles in life that you just got to work around them, and then figure out what to do from there. So yeah, we'll try to figure out what to do. Maybe I don't know, maybe film from some coliseum, or some weird waterfall, or I don't know, but we'll switch things up. Once the snow melts and it's springtime and summertime, and then the possibilities are endless, ladies and gentlemen. So we're optimistic for the future. Hopefully you will be continue to be entertained by good times, by text messages. And that being said, ladies and gentlemen, on the Parasite of the show, I'm glad to have you here once again. We'll be back on Thursday, or on Saturday for the 23rd episode. Thank you very much for listening.